funny that you said sick, because, you know, that's like part of the, part of this album.
For sure.
That's the
whole thing, I think, is sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I have a quote to open us up with. I'm gonna maybe try to do this every episode. We'll see. If that's the future of music, then I want to be dead. This is what an unknown A&R man said when he heard Slipknot for the first time. We are the future, and we're going to fucking kill you. And that was Sean Crayon. That was his response to that. Teddy, first question. Do you know how you're supposed to pronounce the name Sean Crayon?
I have absolutely no idea. I do know that's the clown guy, right?
That's Clown.
I think this is the first time I've ever... this is the first time that I've ever heard him referred to not as Clown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we should just stick to Clown, because we know how to say that.
What's his number? Just referring to only his numbers?
I think he's 6.
Yes, you're right. Teddy knows.
I was
Slipknot super fan.
I was a big Slipknot head for like 3 years, and then kind of fell off, and then recently got back into them, partially because, as real listeners of this pod know, that we initially met and hung out at Knotfest.
That's right.
2 years ago, 3 years ago now at this point?
Almost 3. That was 2021, right?
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, damn. Time flies.
Well, listeners, this is what you're hearing now, the second episode of Bay Not Me Slippin', which is our review series of Slipknot albums. Teddy's laughing. So, Teddy, do you get the reference for the title there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good.
I do, yes.
And I say this is the second episode, and that's why it is going to be referred to as episode number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're kind of
following, very Slipknot of you.
We're following their numbering scheme, which starts at 0.
Yeah. And I mean, this is technically the first album. Like the what was it? Mate, kill, fuck, repeat, or whatever. That's
it's feed and repeat.
I was close.
Yeah, you were very close.
I was close. Yeah. That's technically a demo.
Yeah.
At least that's what they call it now.
Mm-hmm. And we listened to that with our friend Oliver on the previous episode of this. And have you listened to that, Teddy? We weren't big fans.
Yeah, it's very raw.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's bad, but it's definitely a product of what it was, which was like a bunch of guys in Iowa who had never made a record before making a record.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pretty much boils down our first podcast.
Yeah. So if you skipped that one, you're now caught up. And today we will be reviewing the first official, big record label album from Slipknot, which is called Slipknot. Released June 29th of 1999. And we'll do a proper introduction. Joining us for this review is our good friend, Teddy Wood. Welcome back to the Rock Hard universe, Teddy.
Thank you. I'm happy to be back.
Glad to have you.
Before we continue, I just, for any local listeners, this episode is dedicated to Chris Wiersma, a titan of the Iowa City experimental music community. So everything we say from here on out is dedicated to the man, Chris Wiersma.
Yeah.
Speaking of men, there were 9 men playing on this album. And
wait, there's no female members of Slipknot?
That
not yet. Not till Woke gets to them.
They need to do that.
That's literally what fucking Gwar did. Gwar got like a female vocalist, and everyone got mad about it because apparently admitting that more than men can play music makes you woke.
Getting mad about Gwar that's something special.
Yeah. You got to be a real special kind of guy to defend the integrity of Gwar.
Slymenstra Hyman, I believe, is one of the female Gwar characters' names.
Sick.
And there's at least
sounds about right.
There's at least one other one at this point. It's been a while since I brushed up on my Gwar lore. But before we talk
that didn't work.
Before we talk track by track, here's a little bit of background information. The guys who played on this album and their numbers, because they're all numbered at this point on this first album. They didn't have numbers on the last one. So first up is Corey Taylor, who is number 8. He is the vocalist, of course. And there's a bit of a story behind this, because this is Corey's first album with them. On the demo was a guy named Anders Kolsefny. So initially they had recruited Corey as a second vocalist, and Corey and Anders would be like tag teaming. Like Corey would be more of the melodic type of stuff, and Anders would be harsher and growly. But as it turned out, Corey Taylor is like a pretty remarkable performer and could do all of it very well. And his just like commanding presence ended up kind of dominating things as they went forward with two vocalists, which pushed Anders further into the background, which, caused some friction. They only played 2 shows with this 2 vocalist lineup. And at the end of that second show, Anders announced from the stage, without having informed anyone ahead of time, that he was quitting the band.
Yeah, sounds like a vocalist,
Yeah, story as old as time. Plus, how are you going to have 10 members in your metal band? I mean, 9 is reasonable, 10 is one too many. Come on.
Once you start pushing double digits, you really got to question, like, all right, what kind of vans do we need for this?
Yeah. And yeah, so Corey, before that, he had been a part of the band Stone Sour, which I've never really paid much attention to, but from what I hear,
it's fine.
Kind of butt rock, right?
Like, yeah, it's like 2000s butt rock, which I mean, I don't hate, but I wouldn't go out of my way to listen to it.
Mm-hmm. And they kind of, stole him from Stone Sour while Stone Sour was also working on an album at SR Audio in Urbandale, which we learned all about last episode. Oh, another fun fact, though. The Stone Sour album that Corey abandoned was being funded by his own grandmother.
Oh.
Damn.
Sorry, Grandma. My true calling is with the clown metal band.
Yeah.
He made the right decision, though.
I mean, he honestly did.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Stone Sour is fine, but it doesn't really show off any of the shit that he's good at as far as a vocalist.
Yeah, and I mean, to my knowledge, Slipknot on their meteoric rise also kind of elevated Stone Sour to a much larger audience because of what...
The only reason I know who Stone Sour was because they used to play that one music video on Fuse, and it was like, oh, that's what the guy from Slipknot looks like. That's cool. Like, I don't know how... Sorry, I don't know how into Slipknot y'all were in like the early 2000s, which was when I first started listening, but there was always like this huge like online thing where it's just like, what do the members actually look like? And everyone knew what Corey Taylor looked like, but the rest would be like weird, like fake photoshopped images of like what they thought the unmasked versions of the rest of the members looked like.
Yeah. So, just for your knowledge, Teddy, as we continue with this, I've been researching by reading a couple of books by Joel McIver and Jason Arnop, are the like music journalist guys who wrote about Slipknot, and they were writing this sort of like, I think the books came out in like 2001, so like right before Iowa came out, and they did write a little bit about that, how like the guys made a pretty good effort to like stay masked whenever they were like visibly in public, and people really didn't know what they looked like.
Yeah, it builds a lore. I mean, it was something that I was Googling on like a fucking like dial-up connection.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And to answer your question, Evan and I were not into Slipknot.
No.
Basically, until we saw them.
I was on
with you.
dial-up on the Weezer message boards, like speculating about Rivers Cuomo's love life.
Oh damn.
I was on Lego.com at the time.
Look, the Lego website used to be fucking sick.
That's much cooler.
Yeah, I remember the exact place I was when I listened to Slipknot for the first time. I was in middle school. The way that our middle school worked was you had to stand outside when you got dropped off by the bus, and then they would let you in when like the doors opened. So each grade stood in a different spot. And when I was in 7th grade, I was standing outside, and one of my friends was like, yo, you have to listen to this band. And then off of one of those fucking like they look like the little pillbox shaped SanDisk MP3 players. Played me Wait and Bleed by Slipknot, and I was like, this is the heaviest band that ever existed. And then like 3 months later I found out about Mathcore and was like, never mind, but they're still cool.
Yeah, and Wait and Bleed is one of the tamer ones on this album.
I was gonna say.
But I mean, but it was the biggest one, so it was probably what like a 12-year-old could find on whatever version of LimeWire was out at the time. Yeah,
I mean, very solid for a first single. It is a good song.
Yeah. It's honestly, I revisited this album a lot in order to do the podcast that you are now listening to. But it's a fucking good first album. Like, I don't know if it's the best Slipknot album or like the best album, but as far as like the first attempt of a band with 9 people to make a cohesive thing, very impressive.
Yeah,
for sure.
Even the songs I don't like that much are like not that bad, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's a 24-year-old album, 25-year-old album
Yeah,
at this point.
25
Like,
now, yeah.
To listen to anything from that era and have it hold up to any degree is impressive.
Yeah. More of those 9 guys. Mick Thompson on the guitar. Well, I'm kind of going out of order. He was number 7. And so there's this guy, Craig Jones, also. He's number 5. And he's the one who like plays samples. So he's like on a laptop, I guess. And he had initially been recruited to replace Donnie Steele, who was the guitarist on the demo, Mate, Feed, Kill, Repeat. Yes. And he left the band for religious reasons. He was too much of a Christian to handle the darkness of Slipknot. And so, yeah, Craig Jones, nickname 133, initially was Donnie Steele's guitar replacement. And then he was like, I'm actually more into playing weird noises on a computer, so could I do that? And then to fill the guitar hole, they brought in Mick Thompson. And he's the one who wears like a sort of, it's a gray mask. It's kind of like a hockey mask. Number 6, I think I already mentioned, was a Clown, and he's a percussionist. He's kind of the heart and soul of the band, really.
He's like the dancing guy from the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones.
He's the one who like hits a keg with a bat, right, in the live shows. Yeah.
I think it's funny. They have 9 members, but they've had like 25 total. Like, they need to just keep adding numbers. You can't like, I don't want a number that's already been assigned to someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I think it should be like a sports team. Like, you did something worth like retiring your number.
You get a sticker on your mask.
Yeah.
You get a little feather sticker to put on your mask.
Yeah. Well, yeah, this is the point where we get into the guys who like left the band while they were working on the album. So he's listed as X number 4, formerly number 4, Josh Brainerd, who also is a guitarist. He was on Mate, Feed, Kill, Repeat. He went with them to record the album with Ross Robinson. They were there for 6 weeks. When they came back to Des Moines, he decided he was done. So like he plays guitar on most of the album, but left the band immediately after doing that. And nobody, to my knowledge, I tried to do a little research on this. Nobody has ever given like a full reason why he bailed. But in Joel McIver's book, he gives this sort of vague quote where he says some decisions were made that he wasn't happy about. And he said that he didn't even take any royalties for the album, which is like, what?
Damn. That's crazy.
Damn.
I can kind of imagine deciding that when it's like the metal band released by a band from Des Moines, Iowa in 1999. You're like, yeah, that won't make it that big. Like, this is going to be something that everyone forgets about. And then like 20 years later, just kicking yourself that you're not racking in that sweet Spotify money.
Yeah. I think that he like after that point though got like session work because Ross Robinson like liked him. So he wasn't like completely out of work at that point. And he was replaced by Jim Root. God, what was Brainerd's mask? Oh, he wore like a bondage mask. And so when Jim Root replaced him, they just gave him that mask, but he hated it. so he switched to a different mask. Jim Root, formerly of a band called Atomic Opera, but they found out there was already a band called Atomic Opera that was more established. So they changed their name to Flying Ass Cannon.
Wow.
That's somehow worse than Atomic Opera, which is already a not good band name. That's like the kind of band name you make up when you're like in your mom's basement at like 14 and you're like, what are 2 words that sound cool together?
Yeah.
Okay, and then X number 3. So this is a guy who joined for a little bit and then left. Is Greg Weltz, nickname Cuddles. He was a percussionist as well. However, the only track he appears on this album is Spit It Out. And the reason that they recruited Greg was that Anders Kolsefny, he was a vocalist, but he was also doing a lot of extra percussion stuff. So when he left the band, there was a little bit of a hole to fill because Corey, wanted to be free to roam the stage as the front man. So in order to fill the percussionist hole, they brought Greg Cuddles Welts in. But Greg was kicked out of the band abruptly right before they signed the record deal with Roadrunner. And I found a 2013 interview where Greg says that he had been dating Joey Jordison's sister. And believing that, like, once the band blew up and was going to be touring all over the country, they're all going to be, fucking and sucking all over the nation. And so Joey's like, listen, Greg, if you can either stay in a relationship with my sister, or you can be in this band having sex all around the world. And Greg Welts chose Joey Jordison's sister over the band.
Damn. Do you think they're still together?
I didn't see if that was the case or not. But I don't think they are. I guess that's a gut feeling on my part.
Statistically, I think you're correct.
So yeah, Greg Welts was number 3. Number 3 was then filled by Chris Fain, who did not actually play on the album, but he does appear in the hidden track titled Mudslide. I don't know if you all listened to Mudslide. No?
I do not recall a Mudslide.
Well, maybe we'll discuss that when we get to the end of the album then. And Chris, despite not playing on the album, it was his Tacoma that pulled a trailer overfilled with all of the band's gear all the way from Des Moines to Los Angeles. So he was really pulling a lot of weight, like literally, for the band, despite not being an official member at the time of recording. Paul Gray on bass. He's awesome, as usual. One of the high points of the demo was Paul Gray's bass work. Yeah. And Joey Jordison on the drums, of course. One of the best. They are number 2 and number 1, respectively. And lastly, number 0, Sid Wilson, who is the DJ. He played the turntables. He was record scratching. A little bit of a fun story with him. They first saw him DJing at Dot Fest, which was a local radio station's outdoor festival in the summer. KKDM. They're now known as Kiss FM, but they were a little more edgy and alternative back then. A few months later, Joey Jordison and Clown saw Sid Wilson DJing at Safari Club, which was like Slipknot's, hangout. They played there all the time. And they had been thinking about adding a DJ to their already extensive lineup. And once they told Sid that, he got way too eager and he was calling Clown 10 times a day to join the band.
Hey, and it worked out. He's got a career because of it.
Yep. Yeah, a smart move, You got to find the right guys to harass. That's how you make it in this industry.
That's how you make it in show business, yeah.
And this, of course, was produced by Ross Robinson, whose work you may be familiar with. He's known as the godfather of nu metal. And at this point, he had already produced albums with Korn, Deftones, Sepultura, and Limp Bizkit. So he was riding high in 1999.
Pretty impressive resume there.
Yeah, I don't think I took a lot of notes about him specifically, but he is an interesting character. I believe he got his first gig in production work working for the band Wasp, who's like an 80s. They're like a hair metal band.
Hair metal, yeah.
Really edgy.
Yeah, I know he did, I think, pretty much all of Korn's stuff, at least back in the day.
Yeah.
It's pretty sick that nu metal is like pretty much crafted by this one guy.
Yeah. He did all the big ones when it was like emerging as a sub genre. The album cover, if you all looked at it, is the guys wearing red jumpsuits and their masks. So they were sort of establishing the aesthetic.
They look like they're having so much fun.
Yeah.
Just hanging out.
What's better than this? Just guys being dudes,
Yeah. Coordinating their fashion choices. Going on a photo shoot.
I really think that's what bands are missing today, is there's not enough coordinated fashion. Like, you had Slipknot with it, you had the Aquabats with it. Mm-hmm. We need more.
Yeah.
We need like a DIY band that does this.
I wonder how people would take that. It seems like people are not super receptive to that kind of idea.
Well, there's this DIY band called Devo back in the day that did some pretty cool stuff with coordinated outfits.
Yeah, it's true. Maybe that's what I should
try.
You
don't get big unless you've got a gimmick,
Yeah. That's definitely true for Slipknot.
It's kind of funny the way that they were talking about it at the time, though, because the idea of wearing masks, they were trying to sell that as like, these days, you know, all success in music is all about just like being an attractive person, and like we're really just all about the music. The image is not important to us, and it's like, come on, you're wearing matching jumpsuits and masks. Like, obviously, this is part of the marketing.
Yep, all the branding, all the barcode stuff.
Oh yeah, the barcode. By the way, it's also shares a name of the first track here: 7426170000027. That is the barcode that was assigned to the demo Mate Feed Kill Repeat when Dan Schlissel of Ismist Recordings in Lincoln, Nebraska, in the mid-late 90s, agreed to distribute the last 400 or so copies of that CD. So that goes back to the roots, that number. A lot of numerology with Slipknot.
Yeah, for sure. I really like Slipknot because it really feels like they just like create all this lore, but then don't have any like, it's all very kind of surface level. No offense to them, but it's just like, we got barcodes on our jumpsuits. We got barcodes everywhere. It's like, what does it mean? It's like, it was our first demo, and it's like, that's it. It's doesn't
Right.
translate to anything. It's not like an ARG. Like there's nothing
right.
deeper than that. Like, we're like, why do you guys all wear masks? And it's like, the media, man. It's like, okay, there's no backstory behind your characters or anything like that. It's not like a Gorillaz situation. Like there's no internal lore about the characters you're playing. It's just fuck being a handsome man in music. Like,
yeah. Oh yeah. One that we neglected to mention, Kiss. Maybe like the biggest ever.
Oh,
you know?
Yeah. ICP.
Of course. Yeah. And Kiss was a big actually influence on these guys. They talk about it in these books, and they actually shared like a practice space with them while they were in LA. They were in the same building getting ready for this album.
Sick.
Yeah.
I'm not like a huge Kiss head, but every time I see a video of them and what's his name? Gene
Simmons.
I don't remember his last name.
Yeah.
Gene Simmons. I almost said Gene Wilder, but I know that's not right.
Speaking of Iowa,
whenever I see
he went
a
to
video,
school here.
Oh, congratulations. Whenever I see a video of Gene Simmons or like Paul Stanley or whatever, and they're wearing like high heels and like doing like kicks while playing an instrument, it's like, that's pretty sick. Like, y'all are essentially just doing drag, but making it way more complicated.
Yeah, except he's like the biggest misogynist ever. He did an interview with Terry Gene Simmons. He did an interview with Terry Gross on NPR back in the day that she like had to stop because he was like, well, first he was like, she asked him about, because he's like Jewish, and she asked him about it, and he was like, a goy would never understand. And then it turns out she's also very Jewish. So she's like, what are you talking about? And then he was like, had the idea that like NPR was going to like attack him the entire time. And so he just was like ultra defensive about any questions about his like personal life. And yeah, he's a real piece of shit.
I saw some sort of like anti-trans comments from, I think, Paul Stanley a few months ago too. And it's like, dude, you fucking Kiss. Like,
that's like, it's so crazy. I will say, I think it's Alice Cooper who's just kind of like, yeah, fuck it. Like, I don't care. But there's so many people from that like scene that are like, yeah, I got my big start basically doing like androgyny.
Yeah.
And now how dare a young person explore their gender identity?
Right. Yeah.
It's fucking, it's all these boomers with lead poisoning. That's how I just write it off in my brain so I don't have to think about it.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, putting all that thick makeup on night after night probably does affect like your brain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who knows what they were using back in the day? What kind of lead-based paints are
just coating their faces in lead. Yeah. I'm sure that's good for you. Let me just fill in the narrative gap a little bit between Mate Feed Kill Repeat, which came out in 96, and the self-titled, which was 99. That's a decent amount of time there. So like, these guys who recorded this demo, they put a ton of work into it and a ton of their own money into it, and were, you know, they had something unique and like worth paying attention to, I think. So I think they expected like, all right, we put all the work in, we released this demo, something's going to happen. And it didn't. they just were pretty much stuck in Des Moines. They played a few shows in Omaha. People outside of the general vicinity did not care about this. They continued recording stuff regularly at SR Audio, hoping to like keep the momentum going. In fact, recorded like an entire 2 versions of an album, which is referred to as the Gold Disc. They recorded this initially with Anders and then replaced all of his vocals with Corey once that switch happened. And they were picking up steam in Des Moines. They had a big following locally because they were so special for the time, really pushing the line.
Yeah.
And they ended up winning a battle of the bands put on by that same radio station I mentioned earlier, KKDM. They beat Stone Sour even, who were like previously the king shit of Des Moines. And they met Sophia John through that battle of the bands. She was like a something director at the radio station. She liked them so much that she agreed to be their manager. Something she had never really done before. So they were learning together. But she ended up being like really good at this job. She was sending their demo all over the place, radio stations everywhere, record labels all over. Nobody really liked it, but she did put a lot of effort into sending it out. But she, because Slipknot and the band Goldfinger shared a bill once, which would have been a crazy show to see.
Yeah.
They were both on Dotfest 1998. She got the contact info for Goldfinger's manager, John Reese, who knew Ross Robinson, who had been producing this kind of like new metal music. So that's how she got in touch with him. He didn't really care for the demo, but she convinced him to come all the way out to Des Moines in March 1998 to see the band in person, which she thought would be more impressive than what they had recorded.
Yeah. And
it was. He sat in on a rehearsal and he was like, hell yeah, I need to work with this band. And then that, got them more coverage, more people paying attention to them in the higher tiers of the recording industry. And they got a 7-album deal with Roadrunner. Fantastic.
That's so late 90s.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you have not put out a successful record ever, and you're from Des Moines, Iowa, but let's do a solid 7 albums.
Yeah. That's really unthinkable. Like, what a business decision.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, you've never gone on tour. You haven't shown that you have the longevity to do it. So, like, we'll stick to 7. 8 might be pushing it,
We believe in you this much.
I don't believe in anyone's 7 albums worth. I don't believe in my own band's 7 albums worth.
Are there any bands that have put out 7 good albums? Chumbawamba, right?
Chumbawamba, Los Compensanos.
Yeah.
Not Slipknot, no offense.
Yeah, they got 2 or 3.
Well, we'll find out as we continue with the series.
Yeah, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Adderall or whatever their new shit is called is actually
is that really
good.
What it's called?
And I'm
there's like an EP
sure
called
it's
Adderall.
Yeah. Oh, okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, nothing cooler than a bunch of men in their late 40s singing about Adderall.
God, they're probably 50 by now, right?
Yeah, I think they're all over 50.
Yeah,
damn,
it's fucking wild.
And I took some notes on the recording process, but it's honestly not that interesting. Just imagine 9 guys, and Ross Robinson's pretty weird.
Yeah, someone who's
read.
actually like kind of competent at producing like heavy rock music.
Yeah,
which is a big contrast to the last album, which is just kind of a mess, like production wise.
Yeah. I mean, no offense to what was his name? It was Sean something. Sean McMahon was the producer of the demo, but he just didn't really have the ability to rein all of this chaos. But Ross Robinson, he'd been through the fire with Korn and Deftones and everything. So yeah, his thing is to like really push the performers to try to get like really raw emotion on record. Like that's what he did with Korn. If you've ever, read anything or heard anything about how far he pushed, God, what's the Korn vocalist's name?
Jonathan Davis.
Jonathan Davis.
Yeah. And if you've listened to that first Korn album, it's like, oh my God.
Yeah. It's crazy. I know people shit on Korn and nu metal in general. Hopefully if you're listening to this podcast, you're not one of those people, but those first few Korn albums are fucking sick.
I think I've only listened to the first 2 maybe, but
well, after you do the Slipknot podcast, we'll do the Korn podcast.
Yeah, we can tie that in. I mean, Korn, Iowa, close enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, he pushes people pretty hard to get pretty strong stuff on record. But in terms of the mixing, I did think that this was interesting. This is a quote from Ross Robinson. "We didn't use any automation. It was all live. You're playing the song as you're mixing. We did each song in one pass, all the way through, mixing all the instruments. It was badass, but that will hopefully be the last hand-mixed album I ever do." So it took a long time for them to mix this, because that's a crazy thing to do if you don't have to.
Yeah, that's insane.
9 members.
Especially for a band with 9 members, most of them being like, I'm sure that Ross Robinson has more experience than the people that I've worked with. No offense to the people that I've worked with, but I used to play in a band where I used a propane tank as part of my percussion, and trying to mic that thing to where it sounds anything like it does when you're listening to it live. Big pain in the ass. And I'm sure that he was doing that with fucking kegs and other weird shit they were banging on.
Yeah, just
percussion's a fucking hard one to get right.
Yeah. They just brought an entire junkyard into the studio with them, basically. Okay, let's go track by track. Let's spill out all of our thoughts about this album.
Sick.
I already talked about the title of the first one, 742617000027. The sort of like noisy, sample-based, experimental sound. They'd been doing a little bit of that on the demo, but right off the bat, this grabbed me much more than any of that on the previous album. I like this opening.
Yeah.
The whole album actually slaps pretty hard, to be honest. I enjoyed it a lot, and I wasn't ever a Slipknot fan back in the day. It's a million times better than the demo.
Yeah, I think the intro track works really well. I think it's interesting enough without. I feel like some bands will make something like that, but then it's like 3-minute song. It's like, all right, I got the gist after 30 seconds. So you can just start the album. And this does 30 seconds of weird ambient bullshit. And then throws you right into probably one of my favorite tracks on the album.
Sick is really good. Yeah. And that contrast between dragging this experimental stuff out too long, which again, I know I'm being a hypocrite here with the kind of music that I make. That's the difference between how they were doing this on the demo and how they do it here. 'Cause it's really drawn out, like at the end of the demo.
Yeah.
But there's a sample of Corey Taylor saying, "The whole thing, I think it's sick." And that's sort of looped at different speeds, different pitches a few times. And it ends up sort of forming its own kind of rhythm as it repeats. Very reminiscent of the sort of like Steve Reich minimalism of 20, 30 years before that.
That's got to be a first comparison there.
I wouldn't be surprised if someone else has caught that.
Yeah, maybe.
Is it Corey Taylor reading it? I thought it was from a fucking documentary.
Well, I saw something that said it was Corey, but it could have been a sample they pulled from somewhere else. I don't know.
Yeah. For some reason, I might be wrong. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
You can
the whole thing is sick, listeners. Man. That's all you need to know.
So him saying sick, that's a good way to get into the track that proceeds. It's called Sick, S-I-C in parentheses, like someone made a mistake in a newspaper. And it is... Let me just play the first like couple seconds of it. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
It just immediately punches you in the face after the 30 seconds of weirdness.
Like, I know I'm not saying anything that hasn't been said like a million times before, but Joey Jorgensen is like so fucking good on this album and in general, but just like listening to like the songs and like passively, it's like, all right, yeah, it's Slipknot. I've heard these, but like when I was like sitting down, like, ignoring my job and listening to this album, it was just like, oh damn, he's doing some like absolutely insane shit back there that like does not pick up on first listen.
Yeah, well, and the music is so layered because there's so many guys doing so many things.
There's so much shit going on.
Yeah, it's easy to tune out a lot of it and just focus on different elements as you go. But yeah, he's really holding it all together. So this is actually a reworked version of the song Slipknot, and greatly improved in my opinion.
I mean, like everything about this, it's like way more concise. It's like all the same elements as the demo, but it's just way more concise and way more like upfront. Like, I mean, this album, like the first like 4 or 5 songs on this album are all pretty mesmerizing, I guess.
Yeah, it starts so strong. I don't think it ends as well as it begins, but very solid first couple of tracks. And I also love the record scratching. Like it fits really well. It adds a lot of cool stuff.
That's for a band in 1999 basically doing like a new thing where they were like, we've heard Korn and we've heard Limp Bizkit. What if we kind of did both of those things?
Yeah.
It works way better than it should.
Yeah.
Didn't like a lot of metal purists like really hate Slipknot like back in the day? I feel like
I don't doubt it.
Yeah, I mean,
like if you were,
because I was kind of thinking this album is kind of like takes out all the things I don't like about metal and just boils it down to the parts that I do like. Like there's no solos, there's no like, they're not like trying to, I mean, it's technical music, like rhythmically especially, but that's the most interesting thing about it is that it's rhythmically really intense and interesting and like syncopated compared to a lot of metal. Yeah. And the vocals are actually like varied. Like it's not just the same thing on every song or even in the middle of the song. It changes.
Yeah.
He's versatile. Yeah.
Yeah. Corey, he's very versatile. This album, probably more so than any of their later stuff, still has a bit of that like hint of rap metal.
Yeah.
Especially towards like the later end.
Yeah.
There's some songs where like I like zoned out and I came back. I was like, is that Corey Taylor? He's kind of just basically doing like a Fred Durst impression.
That's exactly what I heard. I called it Dursty, like later in my notes. Yeah. But speaking of syncopation and speaking of like the rap elements of this, let me play this clip from Sick and just tell me if it reminds you of anything else.
Can't kill me 'cause I'm already inside you. You can't kill me 'cause I'm already inside you.
You can't kill me 'cause I'm already inside you. I am trying not to lose my head. It's like the same syncopated rhythm as a Grandmaster Flash.
I didn't make that connection, but thank you for pointing it out.
I couldn't. It hit me immediately. I was like, "This is really weird." What about Eyeless, the third track here?
Is that the one with the Amen break in the beginning?
I was laughing so hard because I had not heard this before. I was like, "Is that the Amen break?" I was like, "Is this Square Pusher? Am I listening to Square Pusher right now?"
Yeah, real 90s hours.
Yeah. I love that. It's like, oh wow, this is like completely different from what came before. But it is funny, but it's like it also, I don't know. I feel like it doesn't cross the line of like being too goofy.
Yeah, no, they should have.
No, it works.
Yeah. They should have added like Wilhelm screams. They should have done like the like the Roland, like the like that from like Dilemma by Nelly. They should have just done a bunch of cool like samples like that. I would have made my enjoyment even more.
Yeah, why didn't they put any like funny movie quotes in here?
Yeah.
They really held back with the movie quotes. There is one later in the album, and there's an Ice Cube sample like in one of the hidden tracks, but most of the vocal samples they refrained from using. I didn't preface our recording with this, but Teddy, as I've gone through these albums, I've been thinking about two potential awards that I can give to moments on the album. One of which is the Worst Words Award, which is my least favorite lyric on the album.
This one might be that.
It's a nominee for sure. And then Recommended Riff is one of my favorite like instrumental moments on the album.
Okay.
So a nomination for Worst Words goes to this phrase on the track Eyeless. You can't see California without Marlon Brando's eyes.
Yep.
I thought that was sick. I liked it. I thought it was cool.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I remember not even for this podcast, but like in like vaguely recent history, like looking up like on Genius what the lyrics to the song was, because it's like I've heard it a million times. You kind of know what they're saying, and I looked it up. I was like, wait, that doesn't make any more sense than like what I thought I was hearing. And then like the annotations for it were just like, yeah, sure. Like they went to California, Marlo Brandon's there. It's like, sure, fine, whatever.
Well, interestingly, according to the books that I read, despite California being, referenced in the phrase, you can't see California without Marlon Brando's eyes. This phrase, originates from a homeless man that they encountered in New York City when they were first visiting the Roadrunner offices. Some guy outside was repeating that phrase, and then they stole it from him and put it on their album, and he never saw a fucking dime from this.
Not crediting artists.
I know.
Yeah. It's It's funny that this has that, which you consider one of the worst lyrics, because it also has one of my favorite lines on the song, or on the album, which is, in like the second verse where he does the, I am my father's son, a phantom of mystery, and that leaves me nothing. The emotion is just so fucking good in it.
That's pretty cool, yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, the lyrics on this one are way better in the demo, too. I'll take like a million lyrics about Marlon Brando over more like werewolf role-playing games.
Yeah, that's what the lyrics of the demo were based around, was a tabletop werewolf game.
That's pretty sick. I kind of respect that.
Yeah.
I'll take the general misanthropy of this album.
That is definitely the vibe of most of Corey Taylor's lyrics. Just an unbridled hatred for everyone.
Yeah. Dude, this album is like so angry. And it's like, I get it. You lived in Iowa. No offense to those of us from Iowa. But like, it really like, it has that sense of just like that, like Midwestern, like hopelessness, like really baked into it.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people say about early Slipknot, is that it just expresses the impotent rage that you may feel, you know, trapped in a place that people don't really care about. I mean, honestly, I like living here.
Yeah, Justin and I are. We're not angry.
Well, that's why you make weird. That's why you make weird experimental music instead of like 5 albums about how much you hate your dad.
Yeah. Also, I have a good relationship with my parents and stuff, so
yeah.
Maybe that's why Iowa's not so horrible to me.
You'll never be Slipknot with that attitude.
It's true. That's what's been holding me back.
Yeah.
We can talk about Wait and Bleed now, I guess. That's the first single. So much melodic vocals on this. Big contrast to what came before. I guess Corey did a little bit of what I call moaning on Eyeless, but it wasn't so much like nice singing. Yeah,
definitely the most commercial song on there, which is the biggest hit also, so it makes sense. I saw a quote where Corey Taylor was talking about how like the record label was like, you could just make a bunch more Wait and Bleeds like for all your next 6 albums. And he was like, we didn't do that because we didn't want to do that. We're staying true to what we want to make, not what the label wants to make. And I respect that.
Yeah.
It is also funny that this is considered like the lighter song of this album.
Yeah.
Just, it does have melodic singing, but it does also have some like pretty fucking heavy parts. It's not
does,
like it's
absolutely.
like
for sure.
an outlier completely.
It's slightly poppier, but that's mostly because they repeat the chorus so many times.
Yep.
Other than that,
I feel like it's a little bit more up tempo than a lot of the rest of the album. It's got that kind of groove that I feel.
Yeah.
Especially they speed it up at that one point. Oh, it's a great song. Like I know you're supposed to hate the singles and be like a true,
nah. I
only listen to the weird B-sides. My favorite track is the 8-minute long one where they do a bunch of industrial bullshit for some reason.
Yeah. I want to play this clip here from the first verse. So I mentioned that this is like way more melodic than what came before it. But like on the first verse, Corey is both screaming, but he's screaming notes. So it's sort of like both at the same time. Just a demonstration of like how good he is at this. So he's screaming, but he's also singing. Like there's a distinct melody there. That's good. That's cool. I'm impressed by him.
He's a really fucking good vocalist. The fact that he has the range to do like the melodic stuff directly into like the heavier shouty stuff to his Fred Durst impression later on. Quite a range.
Yeah.
Way better than me.
This is a smaller nomination for worst words, but at some point in this song he says, "The flesh was in my bones." I don't totally hate that, but what does that mean? The flesh was in my bones? It's the other way around, isn't it?
That it sounds like that one little Yachty line where he's like, she suck on my dick like a cello. It's just like, that's not.
I respect that. That's really good.
Yeah, yeah.
Where it's like, it's like you're almost there. Like the line would make sense if you switched like 3 words around, but no, the flesh was in your bones.
Do we have any other thoughts on Wait and Bleed?
Oh, no, it's a banger.
There's not that much to say.
Most of them are bangers.
Most of them are bangers.
Like
Actually, the weakest tracks are the ones that were from the demo. Like, we'll get there, I guess. But
Surfacing is the one after that. I was not a huge fan. I noticed on this, so every time that they have sort of like a high squealy guitar part, it sort of annoys me. Like, I really just want them like chugging. Really low riffs.
You want the chun.
And this album starts
I like
with
the song.
Or this track starts with the high stuff.
Yeah. I like Surfacing. I think it's kind of simple compared to like some of their more, what's the word? Trying to use music talking about it. The structure. The structure of this one's pretty straightforward. It's just kind of them yelling basically like the same thing over and over again. But the chorus, with the fuck it all, fuck this world, fuck everything that you stand for, it's like, damn, all right, you're really mad, huh? You did not let up after.
That's my nomination for the most, or at least the one that stuck out to me as like a cringy lyric to me was, he says all that stuff and then he says, don't ever judge me. Like, you can't just say all that super misanthropic stuff and then be like, don't judge me for it. Like, that's like that's like some real childish shit. Like,
I like it. It feels very like unbridled. It's like, yeah, it's stupid, but like if you were like an angry guy from Iowa in 1998 or whatever, that was probably the depths of your emotions at one point.
Yeah. And this is, that segment there, fuck this world, fuck everything you stand for, and whatever else was in there. That's why this became like an anthem of pissed off suburban white kids. That's why Slipknot succeeded, is for stuff like that.
Listen, you can say all that stuff, but people are going to judge you for it. There's nothing you can do about that. You need to accept it.
Yeah. Well, what you do is you get the tattoo that says "Only God can judge me," and that's like it deflects all of that.
Yeah, that's what it is.
There was a moment in this song that is one of my nominees for recommended riff. There's a post-chorus, and you hear some turntables leading into everything drops out, and you hear a little bit of a bass line, and then they go into a riff in the bridge, and it's just an awesome transition. I'm going to play that now. I wanted to let that riff go a couple times because it's pretty good.
It's so sick.
But that's that very, very brief moment of just the bass alone is like, give Paul his moment.
Exactly. Yeah, as Evan said, there aren't too many like flashy solos on this, so I'm glad that it was like, here's like 10 seconds. Like, it's buried in the mix probably because you're listening to this in your Toyota Corolla that you inherited from your grandma, but
absolutely,
it's there.
That is the Slipknot vehicle of choice.
After that is Spit It Out, which is unique on the album because this one they recorded in Urbandale. This is one that was not actually recorded at Indigo Ranch with Ross Robinson. They recorded it in Iowa in 1998, and this one actually got some radio play locally. And I don't think it's like super good, but it's cool that they got some radio play.
I like the weird samples in this. That one part where it all kind of falls out, and there's that kind of like proto dub stuffy like whoa.
Oh yeah.
You know what? While you say that, let me pull that up because I do have a timestamp for that, and I do like that.
Beautiful. Yeah.
That happens right here, 1 minute and 25 seconds into the song. That's kind of cool. And you hear a little bit of the like melodic hook.
Yep. That right into like that super like compressed drum fill. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I like this one. I like there's not a whole lot of songs on this album that I don't like. Yeah. Like I'm a Slipknot fan.
This is the one that's probably most likely to, like, this is the one that would get stuck in my head as I was listening to it. Just the chorus, I think it's just basically the same chorus. Yeah, I like it. It's corny, but it's kind of hype.
Yeah, this is where he gets really thirsty for the first time on the album, I think. Okay, this is where I have some interesting backstory.
Oh.
Would you guys be surprised if I told you that there's a man-cow connection to this song?
No.
Eric Mancow Mueller, Chicago's favorite shock jock. He was syndicated on the other radio station. There was a bit of a radio war going on in Des Moines in the late 90s between KKDM and KAZR, which are known now as Kiss FM and Laser. Laser 103 or 5?
Don't know. I do not listen to terrestrial radio in 2024.
Yeah. But Sophia John, again, their manager, worked at KKDM. So that was the home of Slipknot. KAZR was the home of Mancow. And there was a rivalry between these two stations. Well, to be clear, it wasn't the home of Mancow. They just happened to be an affiliate of whatever station was playing Mancow in Chicago. But there was a lot of loyalty there.
Yeah.
And this radio rivalry was so intense that Slipknot was supposed to play a bill supporting Anthrax at the United Center in Chicago on Halloween 1997, which would have been fucking huge for them. Like, all they had out was the demo at that point. They were barely getting out of Des Moines at all. They were going to open for Anthrax in Chicago. And they got kicked off the bill because fucking Mancow accused them of threatening one of his colleagues.
Well, did they?
Maybe they
Mancow
did,
correct?
I'm sure he deserved it.
You probably deserved it. Look, as much as I really like Street Fight Radio and all the things it's brought into my life, including y'all, I hate the fact that I'm now like hyper aware about shock jocks. If it wasn't for that, I would have gone my entire life without knowing who Mancow was and would have died a happy person. But
yeah.
Instead, now I'm burdened with the weight of knowing who Mancow is and the Grease Man and all these other Don Imus, all these awful, awful men.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, I knew about Imus before. He had.
I didn't. I lived a blissful life where the only thing my dad listened to in the car was NPR and Meatloaf. That was my entire terrestrial radio experience.
Yeah. There was also KAZR had a yearly festival called Mancow's Laser Luau in Des Moines, and Slipknot refused to play that festival out of loyalty to
that guy. Yeah.
to Sophia and KKDM.
How are you gonna have a festival in like Ankeny and call it a luau?
And yeah, as I already mentioned, they recorded this in Urbandale, so this was not one that was part of the Ross Robinson recording session. They did attempt to record like updated versions of this song because Roadrunner wanted them to have like a faster version of it that could have been like a good single. And they say that they tried, but nothing ever beat the SR Audio edition of Spit It Out. So Sean McMahon got a credit on the album because he produced that one. So that's pretty cool.
Good for him.
Yeah. Tattered and Torn, the one after that, this is one that is an updated version of one of the demo tracks. And this one didn't really get much better.
No.
Yeah, it's fine.
It was already one of the weakest tracks on the demo, even, and then
this. I don't know what streaming service y'all are using to listen to this, or if you have downloaded it. Like
I think I have a CD rip of this, like a one that I ripped myself.
I actually
years
have
ago.
a deluxe edition that I think has the it has the hyper version of Spit It Out and the Stamp You Out mix of Spit It Out. I got it off of Usenet.
Hyper version is the one that Ross Robinson did.
Yeah, I think so.
So on Spotify, after Spit It Out, you can see the play count just dip. Like it's like you can tell people are listening to the album and they like get to Spit It Out and they're like, "Damn, this album is so good." And then Tattered and Torn hits and it's like,
those first 5 songs are pretty hard to complain about.
They're pretty sick. Yeah.
Really good start. So Tattered and Torn on the demo started with this squealy guitar loop that was really annoying and I really didn't like. And they have sort of transformed that into like a nursery rhyme music box kind of sound. And there's sort of like really confusing, sort of disorienting stuff going on with all the samples. I don't know. I give them credit for trying to make it a little more interesting, but the note that I wrote was, "I'm being stalked and murdered at the county fair." That's kind of the vibe of this song.
I think Clown does versions, or Clown does vocals on this one as well.
I think that's
so
true.
It would make sense to feel like you're getting stalked at a carnival.
Oh, yeah. This is where things kind of diverge, because the initial release of this album had 2 tracks called Frail Limb Nursery and Purity. But the version that I listened to does not have those tracks and instead has a track called Me Inside. The reason that this was reissued with a new track is because the lyrics on Frail Limb Nursery and Purity were based on a story that the guys read on a website called crimescene.com about a girl named Purity Knight, who I think was like kidnapped and murdered or something. And they thought this was like a real news story, so they wrote a couple songs about her. And then they found out it was fictional and therefore copyrighted. So they had to take it off the album. So I don't know, did either of you hear any of those tracks?
Yeah, the Purity is on the deluxe edition. Okay. It's pretty good. I don't know. It switches to like more melodic vocals and it's kind of abrupt and I didn't like that as much, but I did look at some Slipknot fans on Reddit, and apparently it is considered one of the better songs on the album.
Purity, that is.
Yes, Purity.
Okay.
I don't know about the other one, which I think...
Frail Limb Nursery. Maybe I don't think that's appeared at all since the initial
that's not on here at all, so I don't know what's going on. But yeah, I did see there's like 3 different physical releases of this album with like different track lists and lengths, which is kind of weird.
Trying to see... So I purposely did not listen to the 10th anniversary edition. I listened to the quote-unquote original one that's on Spotify.
Right. So you probably listened to Me Inside.
Yep.
Okay.
Which is also fine.
That was kind of my feelings on it as well. And to be fair, this was not originally part of the tracks that made it onto the album. It was a replacement.
Yeah. All right. Purity is on the deluxe version on Spotify, which means I've probably listened to it at least once. But not was it Frail Body?
Frail Limb Nursery.
I was close.
But in terms of Me Inside, so I talked about my sort of distaste for the higher guitar parts, but this is one exception, I think. In the song Me Inside, there's this sort of like chopped up, jagged, high guitar stuff that I thought sounded pretty good. So it's still like squeedly, meatly stuff, but I kind of like the choppiness of that.
Yeah. It sounds very Buckethead-esque. If you've ever delved into any of Buckethead's massive catalog.
Yeah, that dude for a period of time was releasing like an album every day, right?
I did a thing where I tried to listen to all of them when I was working in a warehouse, and I got through like 70 something of them before it was like, I gotta listen to something that isn't just an insane man with a guitar.
Yeah, it's funny. I vaguely remember that, and I remembered it was Teddy who told us about that. The daily albums. That's hilarious.
There may be a recording of us talking about this already before.
That checks out. Yeah. For real Iowa rock hard caucus heads out there.
Yeah. I remember sitting at my old desk job, just bored out of my mind, looking at the Buckethead Wikipedia page and being like, "Oh my god, look at all this!"
Yeah,
it's like every like 5th one is like insanely good, but it's like there's no easy way to discern which ones they are because most of them are just given numbers, or B, try and convince a normal human being to listen to like the 78th album by Buckethead.
Yeah,
like trust me, this one's good. Like
yeah.
Have you ever listened to Colonel Claypool's Bucket of Bernie Brains?
That's a Les Claypool
I don't think
project,
so.
right?
It's Les Claypool, Buckethead, Bernie Worrell, the keyboardist from Parliament Funkadelic, rest in peace. And then, drummer from Primus. So yeah.
That's pretty sick.
Yeah, I have not got around to listening to it, but I was like really getting into Bernie Worrell. And like P-Funk and stuff. And then I heard about this and I was like, what the fuck is this lineup? That's insane.
I know Les Claypool's on a few Buckethead tracks. I think on one of his like actual like studio albums. Oh god, what's it called? Is it Buckethead Land?
I must say, I do respect the content.
He's got one with Serge
creation
Tankian as well.
Of,
Look, I mean, I don't even think it's content creation. I think he's just insane. But
yeah. He's just very busy. Stays working.
Yeah. There, interestingly, on Me Inside, there is a line in Spanish for some reason. And I'm not going to do a great job pronouncing this, but somos feos y apestamos pero reinamos hoto. Either of you Spanish speakers? Okay. That translates, according to Genius.com, translates to, we're ugly and we stink, but we reign everything.
Yeah, checks out.
Yeah, there's a lot of sort of like self-hatred on the album, so why not do it in Spanish once?
Yeah.
It's fair to say.
Imagine just being like a guy who doesn't speak English in like 1999 and you're just hearing that shit in the background somewhere, and then there's like one Spanish line and then it goes back to English. I would assume that someone was trying to like speak to me through like divine intervention or something.
Yeah. Liberate. How do we feel about Liberate? I wrote that I really like the intro.
I thought he was saying liberate bananas, not liberate my madness.
I can't believe you said that. Let me play an example of that, actually. I'm going to play from... So he says the phrase, liberate my madness, 13 times in this song. And one example of that is this chorus here. Okay, and it just keeps going like that. There's an annotation on Genius.com. It says this annotation is unreviewed. It does have 2 thumbs up, and it says it has 2 contributors. And it just says, liberate bananas, liberate my nanas. Do you like my madness? Do you like bananas? Do you like my nanas? Lemonade bananas, lemonade my nanas, lemonade my madness.
99
Look, honestly,
bananas.
That makes about as much sense as the Marlo Brandon line.
Yeah.
Marlo.
Marlon Brando.
Let's go Marlon Brandon.
You move the end to the...
Yeah.
Marlon Brandon. I like that.
This may be, though, a good opportunity for Teddy to plug the Minion podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Those guys like bananas,
Listen
right?
to Minioncast. You can go to minion.zone for all of your Minion needs.
Bananas are a thing that the Minions are into, right?
Yeah, it's one of like the 4 words that they speak that's in English. They speak a combination of French, Spanish, and English because why not?
Esperanto?
The mother tongue. It's like Esperanto-esque.
I just remembered Evan and I were talking about Gru on the last episode of our
we
podcast.
were. We were talking about Minions.
Damn it! And you brought me on for this one?
It was very brief.
Totally impromptu.
Yeah, it just came up organically. We were talking about Yoda, and then it just sort of, naturally evolved into a discussion of the Minions.
Yeah.
Yeah, as one is wont with Yoda. Yeah, so there is a Minion Slipknot fan art, just in case you're wondering. I did Google that.
Hell yes.
Is there a chat on fucking Zoom? There we go.
There is, yeah.
Can I send photos in it? I can't send photos in it. This is bullshit. Here we go.
Yeah, you'll have to send a link to the photo, which
There
I am pulling up now. That's pretty interesting.
Credit to Jeff Riddle 2017 for that one. It's pretty high quality.
Oh, and it says Minnot at the top.
Midnight. Yeah.
I didn't have much else to say about Liberate. There's some pretty extreme pitch bending in the guitar parts that I thought was fun to listen to.
Yeah, it's a fine track. I feel like this one and Torn and Tattered, Tattered and Torn, sorry, and Me Inside are kind of like a lull for me on this album.
Yeah.
Because the next one, Prosthetics, I don't think is that good of a song, but it is probably the most Fred Durst song on this album.
Prosthetics seemed to me, my first impression is that this song is about abducting a child.
Yeah, they've got, Purity's about abducting a child. Prosthetics. I didn't read the lyric sheet on any of this, but I'll take your word for it.
This song did earn a nomination for Worst Words. Let me see it. Let me pull it up here. It's almost 2 minutes into the song. He's saying like, "You will be mine," is what he's sort of repeating here.
I fucking knew I'm bad mine. I fucking knew I'm bad mine. I fucking knew I'm bad mine.
A fucking you will be mine. A fucking you will be mine. What does that mean?
Fucking you will be mine.
Maybe that, I don't know. That's probably low on the the nomination list for worst words.
I don't think it's that bad.
Yeah.
It's just sometimes when like you repeat a line that isn't that great, then that's when you notice like this really isn't that great. Like if he said it once, you probably would have skimmed over it, but
you're drawing too much attention
when you
to
do
it.
Like 4 or 5 times, it's like, all right, man, we're on to you.
Honestly, speaking of that, let me play another clip from Prosthetics. Now that we're talking about how repetition makes something worse. And he ramps up, but he keeps saying the same thing. What the fuck is different, man? I can't believe I'm doing this. And you heard that as kind of Fred Dursty?
I think that this one, and then I think it's,
the next one is very rap rock.
No Life.
Yeah, no Life.
Only one.
No Life also sounds like it would be a Fred Durst song. Or like a Limp Bizkit track title.
Yeah. There are moments in Slipknot tracks where sort of repeating a short phrase as like a mantra works extremely well. For example, Only One, which we'll get to later. Only One of Us Walks Away, which they also did on the demo. I think that's one of the best examples of a Slipknot song is the part where they chant that. But what the fuck is different, man? I can't believe I'm doing this is not, it doesn't rise to that level for me.
Nah.
Okay, No Life. It's very... Corey's rapping a lot on this one, and he even mentions Chuck D and LL Cool J in it, which I thought was unnecessary. It's distracting. You know, you're building a sort of like aesthetic and a lore with your band, I feel, and I don't know if Chuck D really fits into this universe.
That's kind of why I like it. It really feels like they were just kind of throwing shit at the wall with this one, and I feel like it works way better than it had any right to be. Like, if you describe this album to someone like blind who had never listened to it, it'd be like, so there's 9 of them. One of them's a clown. There's like 4 percussionists. There's a turntablist.
Yeah.
A bunch of the songs are about like abducting children, but from a standpoint of not wanting to actually do that. The rest are about hating Iowa or your dad or wanting to commit suicide, right. And they rap on it. I'd be like, no, I'm good. Like,
this song does have a recommended riff nomination for its bass. Here's a good example of the bass from Paul Gray on No Life. I mean, he's just doing like a really fast walking bass line, but it's really good. I like it.
Every time the fucking drums come back in, it's like 10 times more complicated than it ever needs to be, but it hits so fucking good.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he is blasting away nonstop.
Yeah.
Okay, so I feel like you were talking about structure earlier, Teddy. I feel like the form of this song, No Life, is sort of going from like cringy white guy rap into like really pretty badass metal. There's sort of a progression, and the song like literally grows on me as I listen to it.
It starts off and you're like, hold on now, Chuck D, what's this? What's this nonsense?
Like sometimes a song will grow on you as you listen to it multiple times, but this is a song that throughout the course of just listening to it once, it grows on me, which is an interesting kind of form, I think.
Yeah. Especially, it's not a super long song either. It's like, what, a little under 3 minutes?
Yeah, 2:47 according to my tracks.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, they accomplish a lot in that time frame.
That's a real strength of this album as opposed to the demo, I think, is the keeping it tight.
Yeah. With the exception of, is it Scissors?
Scissors is the last one, yeah. Yep. That's its weakness, is that they really just kind of let it stretch out.
Well, there's, at least on the version I have, there's a song after Scissors. I don't know if maybe it's like a quote-unquote secret track on the actual album.
Is that Eeyore?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I read, that it was, on the original release, it was a secret track.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. On Spotify, they broke it out and gave it its own name and track listing.
Yep. Before we get there, what about Diluted?
It's fine.
The only part that sticks out is the end where he's talking about what the hell did he do to deserve this, which was, as far as mantras go, was relatively good, I would say.
Are you talking about the time, Let me see. I've got in my notes that he says, "I see you in me."
Yeah, that's
8 times.
Too. Yeah,
okay.
It's at the very end. I don't know if you have it. I don't have a timestamp or anything.
Obviously, the entirety of this song did not make that much of an impression on me, but there were parts of this that I liked. There's a sort of like, earlier I mentioned that Corey Taylor was sort of moaning, and I didn't really like that style of vocalization. He does that on this track as well, but there's sort of like a crunchy vocal effect on it that I feel makes it more palatable. There's also a part where there's 2 Coreys. He's overdubbed, and he's sort of like moaning and growling with himself. And I feel like that is pretty effective too.
I just noticed that you sent a note stock to the chat.
Yeah.
I've been fucking flying blind here.
You didn't necessarily need to have that. It was just like in case you wanted to see what I wrote.
Well, next time.
And speaking of, layering vocals over each other, was Chris Fain the one who... Yeah, so he wasn't credited on this album, but he does do vocals on this. He's like a background vocalist on this part of this song, Diluted.
We can justify what the hell did I do to deserve all of this?
And that's the part that Evan was talking about, right?
Yeah.
And you can hear Chris Fain just fucking screaming, long screams in the background, and it really adds to the texture.
Yeah.
There's also a sample of Rupert Everett as Francesco Della Morte in the movie Cemetery Man in this song.
Oh, of course.
He says, "I haven't got time for the living." And that, I don't know, that's Cemetery Man? I don't even know what that is. 1994
Not
movie,
familiar,
apparently.
But maybe we should be. Maybe we're not true Slipknot heads.
Yeah.
That's a late 90s VHS rental movie for sure.
Yeah, maybe it's something they rented up at Indigo Ranch, which is very isolated from what I've read.
Mr. Movies. Wait, no.
What's it called? Cemetery Man?
Cemetery Man. Yeah.
Cemetery Man.
94.
All right. It's not on the site that I get all my VHS rips off of it, so it must be real obscure.
And remember that Grandmaster Flash rhythm, "You can't kill me 'cause I'm already inside you." So there was that on Sick, which was like the first real track of this album. And then in Diluted, he repeats the phrase, "I see you in me." So Corey Taylor is very, it seems, preoccupied with either being in someone or someone being in him. Like that's a big part of his lyrical output here.
Yeah. Kind of, lines up with the masks and stuff. And like the wanting to be someone else.
Yeah, wanting to be someone who doesn't live in Iowa.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for all the Iowa jokes. It's easy pickings.
It's easy pickings.
That's what this is all about, this band, And then Only One comes after that, which I think may be my favorite. I don't know. I like this song.
I really like the like riff at the end that's like very like stop-starty, almost like mathy. But this one also does have some very Fred Durst, like the beginning part is very Fred Durst.
Yeah, I think he gets better at it as the albums go on. That he doesn't rap nearly as much. He does kind of do that like sing-songy talk. I'm talking, but I'm singing. Thing that's like borderline rap. But in this one, he kind of pitches his voice up when he does it, so it sounds very Fred Durst.
Yeah, it's clear that Limp Bizkit was big at the time.
Yeah. Yep.
And I mean,
you could tell that. Like, I mean, I don't blame him. I mean, when we were talking about doing this, I obviously listened to this record a lot, and I thought about the fact that this came out in 1999, which honestly feels pretty late as far as like the new metal movement went on. Like Woodstock 1999 was this year where Fred Durst and Limp Bizkit notoriously threw, in my opinion, a very good set, but very, very chaotic shit surrounding it. So between that, I mean, Korn had been out for like 5 years.
Right.
Like, I don't know when exactly the Deftones put shit out. That's not really my cup of tea as far as new metal goes, but they were kind of like the latecomers to it.
Yeah.
Which you don't really think about when everything is in the past to us, at least to me. When thinking about this stuff. In my head, it all kind of happened at the same time, but it's like, oh no, they were like the small band when Fred Durst was being Fred Durst out there.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, they got the Limp Bizkit producer. So, I mean, fuck. Maybe Ross Robinson told him to do that.
Yeah.
He was like, I had another white guy in here and he rapped.
He kind of sounded like this.
You guys don't have bagpipes, so that's the two things I can do. You can either put bagpipes or white rap on your album.
Yeah, I mean, there's the rap parts are like, they're intermittent enough that it doesn't detract at all. Like, I wouldn't ever think it's like out of place, really, because like there's enough variety in there. I think that it works pretty well.
Yeah. I did get another nomination for recommended riff near the end of this song. I tended to really gravitate to these like short transitional bits where like a percussionist is really exposed or like the bass line's really exposed. So here's another one. Right before they get into the sort of like only one of us walks away chant that ends the track. That may be the moment of the album for me. Like, just let the guys fucking do a weird drum solo and then bring it all together for the fucking like everyone screaming. Only one of us walks away. Like, this is quintessential Slipknot to me. As someone who's like a new fan of Slipknot as an adult.
I think it's really interesting that you're always drawn to like their transitional parts, and I do think it speaks to just how much is going on the rest of the time that it can be kind of difficult to flesh out like what exactly is going on, at least on not first listen, but like unless you're sitting there with like giant ass headphones on and really diving deep into the different frequencies, and B, just how fucking talented like everyone on this record is. At least, I mean, I don't know if I would call what Clown does, like difficult, but hey, no one else is doing it like him.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, this is his band, basically. Like,
I mean, he is like the fucking dancing guy from Mighty Mighty Boston's. That guy's the brains behind the band, or was until they broke up because the one guy's a COVID truther.
Is that really what happened to the Mighty Mighty Boston?
That's 100% what happened. The Mighty Mighty Boston's broke up because the main guy, Dickie Harrelson or whatever, they put out a very tone-deaf song about
George Floyd.
Which I feel like we also talked about on the last time we recorded.
We might have.
And then B, they broke up because he was a COVID truther. And so now there is a super group of all these like weird right-wing guys that got kicked out of their B-tier punk bands.
It's the Offspring guy? Because they kicked another guy out of the Offspring for COVID stuff.
Was that their drummer?
Like, I also found out a guy from Mumford & Sons is like a super like right-wing influencer now. He like quit the band.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it does. But I was like still kind of surprised. And like, I guess the band just continued on without him because they're like, we can't really like, we don't really approve of what you're doing. So
yeah, without any of the Sons, doesn't hit the same. Yeah, so the band is called The Defiant, and it's got the guy from the Mighty Mighty Boston's, The Offspring, and someone from Smash Mouth as well that got kicked out.
Someone got kicked out of Smash Mouth?
Yeah, Greg Camp.
Huh. Because I mean,
I don't know who that is. The only guy I knew was the main
Steve
guy.
Hartwell.
He died.
Yeah, Steve Hartwell.
Yeah. Rest in peace.
I thought he was the problematic one because he was like such an alcoholic that he was saying crazy shit in public.
Oh yeah, there was that one concert where he was like just heckling the crowd and like not in a good spot.
I mean, I felt bad for him.
Yeah.
I saw them live once and it was just like really apparent he wasn't doing well. And it's like, this isn't even funny at this point, man. Like, I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry you have to be in Smash Mouth instead of like getting help.
Yeah, please take your Shrek check and like get help.
Yeah. Go to therapy.
God, yeah.
Or
imagine
rehab.
Imagine how much money that guy was making in like 2000.
Yeah.
All-Star was everything.
Yeah.
R.I.P.
Damn. Rest in peace to a troubled king.
Yeah.
See, this is what I was listening to at the time, was Astro Lounge.
Yeah, me too.
Astro Lounge is it's a sick album.
That might have been like the first CD I ever owned.
My friends used to do this thing called Smash Mouth September, where they would only listen to Smash Mouth for the entire month of September.
Wow.
Which
a whole month
is fun in theory, but
that's tough.
No, you want to, my friend Kyle, shout out to Kyle Walker. You're probably not listening to this, but one of my dear friends used to do something called July, 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 where he would listen to that song July, July by the Decemberists every single time we were in his car nonstop. So we would drive like hours and he would just be playing July,
horrible.
July.
Holy shit.
I have not listened to that song since the summer he did this, which was probably like 2009, and I could probably recite the entire
just
thing
that guy's
by
voice is enough. Like I'm not fuck with the Decemberists.
Any chance I had of enjoying the Decemberists was trounced by July, July, July.
My friend Roland, brother of Stella, contributor to Rock Hard Caucus, he years ago was going on a road trip with a bunch of other people, and he burned a CD for the car ride, and the only thing on that CD was a 90-minute edit of the song "Life Is a Highway," where he went in and he just looped the chorus enough times that he would fill an entire CD with it. And
that's pretty sick.
I listened to it and it's like seamless. He did a really good job editing it. So like, if you're not really paying close attention, you're like, how long is this song?
It's been going on for a while now. I don't know good. If you listen to the podcast Beep Beep Lettuce at all.
I have not.
Fellow people within this weird left-wing sphere of ours. But they ended a podcast the other day with like a 45-minute rendition of Fast Car by Tracy Chapman.
Nice.
It was like a remix. And like, cause I was listening to the podcast, I was like, it says there's like 40 minutes left, but like they're wrapping up. And then it just played that. And then I like listened to like 15 minutes of it before I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like this is too much. Too fast of a car.
Okay, we should talk about the end of this album.
Yeah. We got so close.
The last real track
distracted.
is Scissors. And this is, I feel, kind of different in tone from the rest of the album. Apparently Joey Jordison wrote most of the lyrics to this one about his own like experience with self-harm. And then there's also some improvised lyrics from Corey about his experiences with drug addiction. But what I mean by a difference in tone, so everything we've been talking about so far is about just a sort of like general anger and misanthropy. But we get this little, I don't know, story from Joey where he writes, "A black widow had offered me a sweetheart tube. As I injected the candied heart that I selected, she said, 'Don't hesitate, just do what you have to do to me.'" It's like a weird poem out of nowhere.
That's some drug shit, Justin. You wouldn't get that. That's a woman tricked me into using drugs with her, and it went down a bad path. That's what that's
sweetheart
about.
tube.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like heroin to me, baby.
Yeah. Well, maybe Corey wrote that part then, because he was supposed to have been the one who wrote about drugs. But whatever. It is very different from everything that came before it.
Yeah. This one, I mean, it reeks of like generic, like, we gotta write a long one, guys.
Right.
Like, we gotta put a ballad on this thing. And it's fine. It's not like offensively bad or anything, but it's probably one of the more forgettable songs on this album, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Right. This isn't really where they shine. They shine with like pure aggression.
Exactly. 3-minute long songs about really not liking your dad.
There is a part of this track though that I found very effective. It's Corey screaming about how he wants to die, and I'm going to play it now. I believe him in that moment.
Yeah.
It's
Damn.
pretty intense. But yeah, I think that this song is kind of too long.
Yeah, it really is because it's like, it's not even like they like, I mean, it does kind of fade out with like industrial noise after this before it goes into the secret track of Eeyore, which we can discuss or not discuss. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But like, it feels like there's like cool stuff in it, but it's spread out and not anything that different compared to the rest of the album that I think does it better. But he is a phenomenal vocalist, and he does really express emotions in a way that I feel like you don't often see in this genre. Like, I feel like a lot of times, like, metal tries to put on some sort of facade to express its emotions, whether it be through metaphors or allegories or whatever. And it's not that often you just get like this raw, almost like emo vocalization of like literally just wanting to die or hating your dad or like
well, and that's kind
wanting to self-harm or whatever.
That's kind of a new metal thing, right? Like Korn was the same way.
Yeah, Korn was also the same way where Korn also got called a bunch of homophobic slurs when they first came on the scene. And it's very weird that people kind of think of new metal as like a masculine thing. I mean, I think that's kind of Fred Durst's fault, but that's shows how bad media literacy is these days that like you can look at Fred Durst and be like, that's a guy who's not doing this ironically at all. He's not playing a character one bit. There's a guy in his band who looks like a fucking Power Rangers villain, but he's definitely a macho guy and there's no irony to it at all.
Yeah.
Oh fuck, what's the guitarist's name? That guy's cool.
Wes Borland. He fucking rules.
Yeah, Wes Borland is great.
And still to this day, if you ever want to like get a good laugh, just Google Wes Borland and Fred Durst, and every photo looks photoshopped because it's Fred Durst in like the hat and like a fucking jersey, and then Wes Borland just looks like a demon, and it's just like in the background. But so
but who's really wearing the costume, man?
He wears he's. Like, there's very few photos of him. I mean, he is like a normal person most of the time, but like he loves dressing up. And it's so sick that you're in a band like Limp Bizkit and you're like, I'm going to be the guy that's like 50 years old and still paints myself up every time we play a show.
Yeah.
He reminds me of like, pictures of like Peter Gabriel when he was young, like early Genesis. He also was, looks like a peacock and shit.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. We're missing that in music. I think that if I went to a show and someone was in like a full getup, I'd probably pay attention.
Yeah, maybe you're right. It's just a lack of effort on the part of today's DIY layabouts.
Millennials today don't want to put in the effort to dress up like a fucking robot zombie or whatever Wes Borland does. Yeah, no one wants to paint their face and wear a mask anymore.
Yeah. Have you ever considered listening to K-pop? There's a lot of costumes in that, and they're all very coordinated.
I have listened to K-pop. It's fine. There's some better than others, but I feel like as a genre, it kind of is overproduced, but I don't think that's a very unique or mind-blowing take I'm giving here.
I agree with you. There are people out here carrying on the tradition of coordinated costumes.
I mean, look, this is going to be my spiciest take of the entire episode right now. I saw Macklemore live once by accident because he was touring with Kesha, and he put on one of the most intricate and insane stage shows I've ever seen, and I respect him for that. So
that's interesting. That's cool.
Shout out Macklemore.
Yeah. I mean, from what I've seen and heard,
he seems like a nice guy.
Cool guy.
Yeah. He apologized to Kendrick Lamar for winning that Grammy. He is pro ceasefire.
He's literally just like, I mean, he is kind of the problem. He's a white guy that's like kind of talented that lucked his way into success because he was a white guy who was kind of talented over a bunch of people of color who were extremely talented. Yeah. But as far as like, he puts a lot of effort into his stage show, and he's just like some guy for the most part, which but
as some guy myself, you know?
Aren't we all?
Yeah. Aren't we all just some guy?
Yep.
Okay, so the end of Slipknot's self-titled 1999 release. In at least my edition of it, there are 2 hidden tracks. The first of which is called Mudslide. And this is not music. This is a recording of something that happened at the studio while they were recording the album. Basically, they were hazing Chris Fane, who is the guy who was like kind of in the band and kind of not at this point, and yet drove all of their gear there with his own vehicle. Anyway, they were forcing him to watch scat porn during the course of recording the album. So this is a recording of him like throwing up because they were making him watch a guy eat poop.
Cut from the deluxe edition.
Beautiful.
I don't know if that was the right choice or not, but
because of woke.
But
you can't listen to a man watch scat porn anymore.
And then Eeyore follows that, which is it kind of sounds like a demo. It's a very raw production. Yeah.
It's raw and it's really vulgar and it's not super interesting. I did think it was funny that it's called Eeyore because I was like, why did they name the song after Eeyore? And then it has nothing to do with it, pretty much.
Right.
I read on whatever, I think it was like Genius or whatever, that this song is actually about some guy who went to their shows who was like crowd killing, and they were just talking about how that guy sucked.
Yeah, I saw that too. I should play this clip because I did hint at this earlier. There's a sample of Ice Cube on this album right at the end, and here it is.
Take that,
And the scratching there, I don't know if he actually did that live or if they just stole that from an NWA track, because I swear I've heard that before.
I mean, no offense to people who scratch records, but there's only so many noises you can make with it. At a certain point, you're going to start repeating them.
Yeah. So that's Slipknot's 1999. I made a lot of nominations in terms of worst words and the recommended riff. I did not do that with the intent of having any sort of formal process where we like vote for what gets what award. I leave that to the listeners to decide. If you hated any of these lyrics any more than any others, maybe you can award your own prize. But overall, I think this is a very solid album, especially really good. Like we were saying, the first few tracks. Yeah.
And as I mentioned before, for a first album of a band from Des Moines, Iowa, with 9 people in it, attempting a genre that had at this point maybe like 3 big albums under its belt, not bad at all. Like a really fucking strong first hit, you know?
Yeah. Very solid. Yeah. I'm looking forward to listening to Iowa again, because we actually already reviewed Iowa years ago on our podcast, but now I feel like we have more experience and we're going to do it right this time.
That's right.
I think Iowa is my favorite. It goes back and forth, but Iowa and then Volume 3 are both also phenomenal records. Everything else they did, you can kind of just forget it exists, but that's something that I'm sure you will find out as you get into the later.
we're gonna get into that. I think
we'll learn.
I haven't spoiled any. I haven't spoiled any of that yet, but we'll see if we agree.
As far as I know, I've never heard anything after Iowa. I'm sure that they played some of the newer tracks at that show we saw.
I'm pretty sure we were at a show where they played plenty of songs after that, but
It's fine, but it just kind of sounds like it's like Jeff Rosenstock, where I like the guy, but it sounds like he's just going through the motions of writing Jeff Rosenstock songs. And that's how I feel about Slipknot. They kind of realized they could like do like, okay, there's the really heavy guitar riff part, and then everything stops, and there's a bass part, then the drums come in, and then there's a record scratch, and it's like, all right, you're kind of doing the formula at this point.
Right.
I don't think it's anything offensively bad, but it's pretty boring after like 2006.
Sure, the novelty wears off. But anyway, Teddy,
they should have added a 10th guy.
Shake things up. Well, a 10th person who could be maybe a woman, perhaps. Really shake things up.
Yeah, Slipknot, if you're listening, you should add a woman to the band.
Yeah, that's
they
the next
honestly
move.
should. I mean, like not even ironically.
Imagine the headlines. People would go crazy over that.
Well, that's literally what happened when Gwar added a woman. It was like no one cared about Gwar for the past 5 years before this, except like the weirdest guys you know. And now everyone's mad because they have a woman. So,
well, Teddy, thank you for reviewing this album with us. It was great to have you on the show again.
Thank you for having me.
You're a wonderful friend to us. And I was just thinking, it's been like about a year since I saw you when I came out to Philly.
Last time I was out in Iowa. Oh, no, you came to Philly last time. I forgot about that.
Yeah, last March I was... you saw me play at a yoga studio.
I did?
Hell yeah.
It's a fun little yoga studio. Because of that show, my bandmate Thomas book shows there now. So you were
yes, that's awesome.
Bridge that connection there.
That was our best show on that tour. That spot, it was like surprisingly great.
It was really sick. I remember when you told me, I like threw you like a pile of venue names because your spot originally dropped, right? It was supposed to be at Century.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. And Century was a problematic venue at that point.
Yeah. I don't know if that's still the case. I know some people who play there regularly, but it's a pain in the ass to get to, so I do not frequent it. But when you were like, it's at Studio 34, I was like, I've passed by there. Isn't it like a yoga place? And then it was sick as hell. Everyone there was mad nice. They gave us soup. Like, I love a venue that feeds you.
That's what's up.
Yeah. What kind of stuff do you have going on that you might want our handful of Patreon subscribers to know about?
You can go to minion.zone if you want to hear me talk about Minions and other insane things. And the band I play in just put out an album. So you can go to stoneskipper.bandcamp.com if you want to hear what is probably like the exact opposite of Slipknot.
Great. I didn't know that, and I will check that out very soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, hell yeah.
It's fun, I think. I like it.
And I would like to renew my expression of interest. I would be happy to be a guest on the Minion program, despite being fairly unfamiliar with the entire Minion thing.
we would love to have you on. It is 100% all my fault because we're the most disorganized podcast possible. We are operating with like a 6-month lag time right now, where episodes we recorded in like October are coming out now because I just don't edit them. So
that's awesome. Okay.
One day I will think more than 24 hours in advance of when we were recording and let you know. And we will.
Okay. Sounds good.
We will talk about some Minions. We can talk about the min-knots or slip-nins.
Min-knot. I think it was min-knot. Yeah.
Min-knot.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's been Bay Not Me Slippin'. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Teddy, Evan, very nice chatting with you.
Yeah.
And next time we'll be back to Iowa. Looking forward to it.
Back to Iowa.
The whole thing, I think it's sick.